welcome to Chris Recommends. In this video, I'm going to be talking about a 2 to 4 player game where you are alchemical mages who are trying to vie for control of ancient monuments, places of power, summoning creatures, and building artifacts, and basically doing all sorts of fantasy generic things, but stick with it because this is a great game. I want to talk about Res Arcana. Res Arcana is a resource management deck building-esque game where you are trying to figure out the best way to get the most out of the cards that you start the game with. So at the start of the game, players are going to be given, or you're going to be given 2 identity cards. They're mages, so you have ones like this Beastmaster or an alchemist or something like that. And they all have various powers that will sort of shape how you're going to play your game. Players are also going to get a couple of essences, little tokens, resources. Essentially, there are 5 essences in this game. I sometimes call them elements, and I will get that mixed up throughout this video, so I apologize. And those are the resources you're going to be using in this game in order to accomplish various tasks. When you set the game up, you're also going to choose 4 of these places of power, and these are special cards, large, thick cardboard cards, as you can see, double-sided, that have various win conditions on them, and they let you generate points. So players are going to start the game also by snake drafting in reverse player order one of these items that give them a variety of powers that they can use on their turn. The point of this game is to get to 10 points, and at the end of a round, whoever has 10 points triggers the end of the game. And then you total up any extra points, and then the person with the most points is the winner. If you're doing the optional first-time startup for the game, then you're going to be given 8 cards from a deck of 40 that have various powers, and then you're going to basically shuffle up that deck. You're going to draw 3 cards, and the game is going to start. Now, the goal of this game is to get to 10 points, as I mentioned. However, you only have your 8 cards to do that. And you're going to try to find ways of comboing cards together to accomplish your goals. Some cards have points printed at the bottom of them. So in this case, this Earth Dragon has a little point here at the bottom, that little kind of wax symbol seal. And they have all costs at the top right-hand corner. But all of the cards are going to have powers on them, abilities that you can trigger during your turn as an action. On a turn of Res Arcana, players are going to take 1 action, and then they're going to pass their turn to the player on the left. You have a variety of actions you can take. Some of the basic actions are play a card from your hand into your area in front of you, essentially paying its cost, whatever it costs in the top left-hand corner, excuse me. So in the case here, this one costs 3 of anything. That's what that gray symbol means. And then 2 death. Then you have a crypt. And then on your turn, as another action, you could do this thing. You can exhaust this card, turning it sideways, and gaining 2 death. So a variety of things that will happen. All the cards kind of do things like that. Some will generate resources at the beginning of a new round once everyone has passed. When players are done with their actions for the round, they're going to pass. And the first player to pass takes this first player token and becomes the first player for the next round. That player will take an item card, which are sort of unique effects that they'll get for the next round. So in this case, this one gives the player who chooses it an income of 1 blue or red or calm or elan element. And when they pass for the turn, they'll get to choose a new one. They'll toss the old one back into the center of the table where the others are, and then they will be done for that round. Players are going to attempt to get points in a variety of ways. I've already mentioned that some cards have points on them, and then I've also mentioned that some of the cards, some of the places of power, give you points. So I wanted to show you kind of how that works really fast so that you can get a sense for how the game plays. So here we have a Dwarven Mines. Now, if you could afford this, you can purchase it on your turn for the cost over there, and then you put it in front of you, and it would be yours only, and you can use it whenever you wanted to on your turn. It also gives you a gold income, so 1 at the beginning of each round, it gives you gold. It also lets you turn this thing sideways to use it and pay 5 Elan, which is the fire, and then it gives you 3 gold. Gold is a rarer kind of essence in this game, and what you can do with gold is you can purchase monuments, and there are these cards that are placed out. They're monuments that are placed out in the 2 on the table, and then a deck of monuments. There are 10 of them. You can either purchase one of the face-up monuments for 4 gold, or you can take one off the top of the deck, a random blind draw for 4 gold. They all cost 4 gold, and they have a variety of powers like letting you draw a card from your deck, turning things into other things, or just giving you income, or just points. And they're all worth from 1 to 3 points. So Res Arcana for me was a very important game in 2018 when it came out. It was the most played game I had personally in my group. We played this so much because, one, it's a really quick game. This game plays in under 45 minutes, probably about 30 to 45 minutes, sometimes even quicker if players get really clever and find interesting combos that let them generate points really quickly, and then they get to 10 points really quickly. There are some really interesting places of power that let you cheat the system a bit. So there are some, the really cool thing about this game is not only does it play in a short amount of time, but there's a lot of variety in what you can do. Because there's only 4 of these places of power out at any given time, you will find that from game to game, your strategy is going to have to pivot, shift. You're going to have to try to figure out how best to race to something or to go for something that you think other players are not going for. So if I see a player suddenly pooling 5 of the red essence, 5 green, and 5 blue, I might think they're going for this coral castle. And that's worth 3 points just by itself, but it also lets you check victory at any point. So that means you can just check victory in the middle of a round. If you have 10 points, you won't have to wait till the end of the round to let people play out their game. So you could be kind of sneaky and cheat a win and stuff like that. So there's really fun times with these places of power. I love them. They're great. The strategy from turn to turn is really interesting. You have this tension between playing out and using all of your things or passing early and taking a better power. One of those items that are in the center of the table. One really powerful one lets you trade in a resource and use it to ready another card, which is effectively like taking an extra action. So you have a really, really good action, do that one, then ready it again and do it again. So you can do these combo-y kind of things together. But the reason this game works so well for me, and the reason I keep coming back to it and I recommend it to people, is not just because it plays quickly, there's a lot of variety, it's interesting and thinky, but also it's not hard to learn. The game is very intuitive. What really has me coming back to this game over and over again, I mentioned that there was a recommended setup where players will just get randomly 8 cards. After you play the game a couple times, the rulebook recommends that you do the advanced rules, the draft variant in the back of the rulebook, and this lets you deal out cards to everyone. You do this, you deal 4 cards out to each player, and then you're going to pick a card to keep and then pass the rest. And then players are going to pass you and you'll pick a card and pass. So you're building your deck. And then you're going to do that again with 4 more cards. So you'll have your 8 cards, but you get to choose in what direction you're going. You'll get to see what other players are doing. I'm not usually a fan of just tacked on drafting at the beginning of a game. This game feels like it was built around that drafting mechanism, and that the initial startup, the new player start recommendation where you just get dealt out cards, is just to help you into the game, to ease you into playing it. The game also plays really well at all player counts. It's very competitive with 2. It plays great at 3 and 4. I don't have any problems with it. It doesn't go that much longer with 4 players as it does with 2, maybe a little bit. There might be a little bit more thinkiness since you can really focus on the player across from you when they're playing, because you can look at exactly what they're doing. You can always kind of focus and see what other players are doing and take in and try to figure out how best to counter what they're doing. So for instance, there are some cards in the game that are dragons that when you use them, they make other players lose essences. And this is the only way to kind of like interact with other players besides taking things from the center of the table and buying them before other players. The dragons make other players lose essences. They can block those with certain other cards that they may have drafted, or they can block those by passing early. passing early is one way to do it. Another way is to get one of the items from the center of the table that lets you block attacks from dragons. So the dragons are this interesting thing, and you can also have a dragon strategy where you try to get as many dragons out as possible. And there is even a place of power that lets you play dragons from other players' discard piles. So if other players try to counter draft them from you, and then they discard them, you could potentially buy the Sorcerer's Bestiary and then get them back and score points that way. There are a couple other things that really make this game pretty phenomenal. From a value standpoint, this is a game that comes with a lot of essences. There's a lot of wooden pieces, but they're all, whoops, I have it open. But it comes in this really amazingly packaged plastic container. So they don't go everywhere when in the box. The container fits perfectly in the box, and then some cards fit, or the places of power fit underneath it. It's pretty cool. So thinking about this game for specific audiences, I think this game is going to play very well for those of you who are familiar with other kinds of card games that have cards that do things. Those of you who have played Magic the Gathering will be pretty familiar with some of the iconography. Some of it is very close to Magic the Gathering. You know, this almost is, I mean, this really is like a filler game. You'll play it and you'll be like, oh, that was really good, palate cleanser. Okay, let's go on to something else we were really aching to play. But this one fits into most gaming groups' time slots, so because it's 30 minutes to maybe an hour if you have some players who need more time to think about their plans. Sometimes a little bit of analysis paralysis the first time you play this game. But the more you play it, the more deep and rewarding the strategies become. I also wanted to mention the game's expansion called Lux et Tenebrae. And this one is, Light and Shadow. And it adds a couple things. It adds a couple more mages that you start the game with. It gives you some more essences. It gives you more artifacts. It gives you 12 new artifacts. And some of those are demons, which interact with the game in a variety of ways, fire demons and things like that. It also gives you something called scrolls, and scrolls are available with a particular item token that you can take at the beginning of the game or throughout the rounds, and they give you access to new abilities. It just basically adds more good stuff to the game that is already full of good stuff. So I recommend this, especially if you're a fan of Res Arcana. I wanted to talk a little bit about the age expectations of this game. I would recommend it for 10 and up. The box says 14 plus, and I think that's fine. There's not really any violence in this game. The art is very kind of sketchy and watercolory, and it's mostly items and things. There's no people being attacked or viciously mauled or anything like that. Just some scary images that younger kids might not be super into. But I'd say, like, if your kid plays Magic the Gathering, they've seen a lot of worse things in cards, and this is fairly tame by those standards. The other thing I wanted to say is that though the game, it does say 14 plus, the skill requirement, the expectation the game has of its player is not as high as a 14 plus game. Shoot us an email at info@mathnificent.com or message us below, like and subscribe, and tell us how we're doing. I'd appreciate that. Thanks a lot, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one.